Madam President, thank you. I rise today to discuss the fiscal year 2010 budget. I also plan to discuss two amendments, number 817 and number 818, that I would like to see considered as a member of the Senate Budget Committee. I spoke on this budget last week during the committee consideration. I was unable to support it then, and unless truly major changes are made here on the Senate floor this week, I will not be able to support it right as it comes up for a vote. Since the President first gave us a preview of his plan, we have heard a lot about this year's budget. I have found it to be very troubling. The budget proposed by the Obama administration is unworkable, and I think everyone here knows that. It spends too much, taxes too much, and borrows too much. The numbers in the President's proposal were appalling to anyone that believes in any kind of fiscal restraint. It got even worse 2 weeks ago when the Congressional Budget Office predicted that the numbers used by the administration were far too optimistic. The President's proposal would double the public-held national debt to more than $15 trillion. Annual spending would leap from $24,000 per household to about $32,000 per household. This plan would also raise taxes by $1.4 trillion over the 10 years. The increase in debt is also staggering. The President's proposal would double the debt held by the public in 5 years and nearly triple it over 10 years. In fact, the proposal would create more debt than under every previous president from George Washington to George W. Bush. With numbers like that, it is not surprising that the authors of this budget resolution before us today had to make some changes. While I applaud the efforts of Chairman Conrad to attempt to rein in some of the worst aspects of the administration's budget proposal, it appears that we may only have an Obama-light version before us. In fact, Peter Orszag, the director of the Office of Management and Budget, tells us that the two versions are 98% the same. 98%. The budget here on the floor still has the same problems, and in some cases, new problems. President Obama promised a new era of transparency in government. This is one reason why he submitted a 10-year budget proposal. However, the proposal before us is only a 5-year projection. Also, the President's budget assumed that Congress would continue to patch the alternative minimum tax, which digs deeper and deeper into the middle class each year. The budget assumes that it will be fixed for only the first 3 years of this 5-year budget proposal. Everyone here knows that we are going to have to take care of those other 2 years, as we should. However, it looks like we still have more tax increase here. It defies logic that this budget targets tax hikes on every person or people who are good at creating jobs. We know that 70% of all job growth in the United States, when we had it, came from small business. This budget penalizes the people who are responsible for 2/3 of the small business jobs. One of the most basic economic principles is that if you want less of an activity, you tax it more. Well, we must want less of job creation. Or maybe we only want to create jobs for government bureaucrats that spend other people's money and our grandchildren and children's money. As I have outlined above, this budget has many other problems. It spends too much, taxes too much, and borrows too much. I urge my colleagues to join me in supporting changes that would make this responsible and fair piece of legislation. I would also like to take a few minutes to talk about the two amendments I will be introducing later in the marathon we have tomorrow, or Thursday. Yeah, that's tomorrow. The first is especially important for many of our seniors because it deals with taxes on Social Security benefits. The amendment I will be offering sets up a deficit-neutral reserve fund to repeal the 1993 increase in the income tax on Social Security benefits. I have brought this issue before the House and before this chamber before. In fact, earlier this year on a stimulus bill, I offered an amendment to repeal this unfair tax for just 1 year. That amendment failed. So with this amendment, I am taking a different tack and using a deficit-neutral reserve fund to repeal the 1993 Social Security tax increase completely. This should be familiar to the chairman of the Senate Budget Committee, since he offered a similar amendment using a deficit-neutral reserve fund during the budget consideration last year. I would like to remind my colleagues that his amendment passed last year by a vote of 53 yeas and 46 nays. When the Social Security program was created, benefits were not taxed at all. However, in 1983, Congress changed the rules of the game by passing legislation to taxing up to 50% of a senior Social Security benefit if their income was over $25,000 for a single individual or $32,000 for a couple. In 1993, as I sat on the Ways and Means Committee at the time, Congress felt 50% of benefit wasn't good enough. That year, Congress passed and the President Clinton signed a bill that allowed 85% of the senior Social Security benefits to be taxed if their income was above $34,000 for a single taxpayer or $44,000 for a couple. The additional money this tax raises doesn't even go to help Social Security solvency. It goes instead to the Medicare Part A program. I opposed this tax increase then, and I oppose it today because 14 million seniors are hit by 85% of their Social Security benefits being taxed. On one hand, we tell the seniors to plan and save for retirement. On the other hand, we tax them for doing just that. This amendment puts the Senate on record that this 85% tax tier would be eliminated and the maximum amount of Social Security benefits that could be taxed would be 50%. If Congress passed legislation to do this, millions of seniors would be able to keep more of their Social Security benefits. I hope my colleagues can support this amendment when it comes up for consideration. I am offering another amendment to pave the way for relieving taxpayers who have suffered devastating capital losses during these troubled economic times. Many taxpayers have been forced to sell their homes or stock or any kind of capital asset at a loss. Our constituents will be stunned to learn that they can only deduct $3,000 of those losses from their adjusted gross income. The $3,000 limit was set in 1976, when tax writers seemed to be ignorant about the impact of inflation. The limit is ridiculous in today's dollars. My amendment creates a deficit-neutral reserve fund for increasing the capital loss deduction. If it helps struggling taxpayers, we have to do it because we raise that deduction from $3,000 If we just did it in inflation, it would be over what I propose at $15,000 that you could deduct from your adjusted gross. Prominent economists have noted that by eliminating some of the downside risk of investing, increasing the capital loss deduction would stimulate investment and economic growth. So this amendment is a winner for taxpayers and a winner for our economy at a time when they both need some wins. I thank you, Mr. President, and I yield the floor.